The president reacted on Truth Social, called Powell unbelievable, urged the Fed to lower rates. Europe's lowered 9 times. Come on. Doug Flynn is here, certified financial planner and co-founder at Flynn Zito Capital Management. The latest episode in all of this. So there's a couple of ways to talk about all of this. The first is, what do you take away from that ADP report and what companies are actually doing in the private sector here? Yeah. You know, they're kind of waiting and seeing what's going to happen. What does it say?
Well, the ADP numbers are typically pretty volatile, and historically you can't just look at them as in and of themselves. What you've got to do is you've got to take what it's saying, which is it's far below the estimate, and apply that to the Friday jobs report that's going to come out. And that number we're looking for is 125,000 on Friday. If that also comes in very weak, then you've got the two pieces together, and then you've got something. At that point, if both of those things are weak, now Trump has a good argument that the one thing they were holding on to is that the labor market was holding up well. And so if inflation is down and now you've got the labor market suffering with these two combination of numbers, then he has a good argument that rates need to start coming down sooner as opposed to later, even though the expectation on the market is only about a 4% possibility of lowering rates this month when they meet in a couple of weeks.
I know Jay Powell's said that he doesn't pay attention to politics, or they all say that, the Fed chairs. Yes. But they're human beings at the end of the day. Do you think some of this is counterproductive? In other words, some people, if I don't know if you're like this, but some people, if I said to you, Doug, do this, you're going to hold out a little while, because you just don't want to do it because I told you to. That type of thing. Does that? I mean, I know it sounds childish, but do you think it can be counterproductive? All this stuff.
Well, childish, what it has been some of the games that we've been playing here, for sure. But I think, look, he definitely has Trump, that is, definitely has an agenda. He wants lower rates. He needs lower rates, and quite honestly, that's holding back the housing market to a very large degree because, as we've talked about a number of times, the mortgage rates bumping back up against 7% with the prices at all-time highs in many places is a really tough situation for a lot of young people. So you need that to get going, and that creates a whole host of other things that people can do. And that's what they need. They need, in order for this bill with the cuts to expenses, they need the revenue numbers to drive upward, and you're going to get that if you get lower rates. If that doesn't happen, some of those revenue numbers are going to be worse than expected, and so that's part of this. Is whatever he needs to do to make it happen.
That makes sense, unless you're counting on tariffs to bring in revenue, which is a whole other story. Yeah. But I mean, sometimes there's even the CBO. I think it was them that looked at it and said they will bring in more revenue. But that to me doesn't seem like that's just from what we know about traditional kind of economics. At least people don't like I would assume someone like you would say no, that's not the way to do it.
It isn't, and it's a short-term fix. It's not what you want. You want your GDP and your growth to come from the engine of America and business and all those other things, and deregulation and lower taxes. Those things can really drive up the numbers and make it a much better scenario than the CBO estimates, as we've seen before. When they lower taxes, people do more money moves around, they actually get more revenue. So that could drive some growth, and I think that's why he wants rates lower, and he's going to say whatever he needs to and keep changing it around until he gets it.
And they might get more, in other words, that big, beautiful bill thing, it might not do as much damage as expected, as people project to debts and deficits. I doubt. I haven't seen any projections that say that there'd be enough growth to wipe all of that out.
No,
but I get the idea that you want growth.
And I think that no matter what those numbers are, they're not going to be exactly right for what the CBO says. That much I'm pretty sure.
Well, it's like the weather. They say it's a 70% chance. It's better than a 30% chance of rain. All right. I actually want to spend another minute here talking about what I think is an interesting story, especially for you. We've talked about this. You're very, very good at talking about regular people, what they should be doing. So this stood out to me. A Wall Street Journal article will put it up. Americans are finally saving almost what they're supposed to for retirement, 401k and the like. What do you make of this? Because we keep hearing for years, we're not saving enough. We got to pick it up.
Yes. This is fantastic news. So, we hear a lot of bad news, but this is actually really good news for America and for Americans. And that the number we always talk about as financial advisors is you need to save 10 to 15% of what you make towards your retirement in order to have any possibility of having a comfortable retirement. And this number is the highest it's ever been. It's up 1% overall from 5 years ago. It's up over 14% of what Americans are saving into their 401k. So that puts a lot of people in a really good position. Now, most of it is at the higher end. The boomers are saving the most, a little less in X, a little less in millennials. But the numbers are great, and that's something that everyone should applaud themselves for doing. Now, part of this is the company match. It's about 9.5% of people and almost 5% from the employer. So you do want to get yourself up to 10%, but keep it going. Only 70% of Americans have access to this, so there's 30% of people that are not participating. So we need everybody to do it.
For that story and for the closing bell. Hey, who says we don't do good news? So we got good news there.